It's pretty competitive.
How are you doing? I haven't seen you in a while. Congratulations. That's a good group. I've known a lot of those folks for a long time.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to IT Leaders. This is our July version. This is our 7th year of running IT Leaders. We started focused on directors and managers of IT, staff positions, the folks who get neglected when it comes to leadership training. Forget all about them. We promote them from fabulous individual contributors to crappy managers, at least at first. And we're here to solve that problem. And you're here to solve that problem. You know, the first year we ran this, it was CIOs sending their direct reports, which, as you can imagine, some begrudgingly came and thought, I don't need any of this. I'm smart enough as it is. I know how to lead people. And about the first year, about the end of the first year, there was a big switch. The people who were getting sent stopped coming, and the people who were working on their own career and doing QA on their own careers are the ones who stayed and continued to come. So, you know, we're back up to where we were before COVID. The July event is typically a little less attended because everybody's on vacation in Italy and Europe or something like that. But I think everybody's happy to be in person again and seeing their friends and getting the opportunity to hear people talk about what it is that they do. This is not a sales meeting. There are times where we let service providers attend. Normally they're here so that they can manage their direct reports better, but this is really focused on staff IT leadership. And we focus on 3 things: networking, mentorship, and leadership skills. So I think you all know that. Bathrooms are over here. And if you need to leave early, just text me. My text number is right up there. And we can walk you out. It's an escort-only facility. We'll have another couple of expedient people here in a few minutes, just so it doesn't have to be me. If you want to keep track of what's going on here, the best place to do it is itleaders.org/Indianapolis. We are in Louisville now, and we're in Pittsburgh and Columbus as well, although those 2 sessions are a little bit more curriculum-based. We're thinking about spreading this a little farther across some of our other markets. I'm actually on a phone call tomorrow with the folks who help us in the Pittsburgh market, and we're talking about moving into a bigger profile. Dan Roberts is the guy who helps us out there. He's got a really good podcast, which the name escapes me, but he interviews IT leaders all the time, and I really like his vision for what's going on. You can also catch us on the LinkedIn company page called IT Leaders Indianapolis, and there's a LinkedIn group also called IT Leaders Indianapolis. The LinkedIn group has a red icon. The LinkedIn company page has the logo that you see down there. So that's how you can tell the difference. Take a couple of pictures today. Take a couple of pictures of the speakers, if you would please, and share this on social media if you will. IT Leaders Indy is the hashtag that we do, or you can text the pictures to me and you'll get them featured on LinkedIn as we show these off. The private group is really focused on you communicating with each other. We don't get a lot of usage of it. I'm actually thinking about switching it right now. If you are interested in getting opinions on service providers or potential employees, anything like that, I would encourage you to join that and use it. We've got a really nice mentorship program that's been going on for 6 of the 7 years. If you're interested in getting matched up with someone, give me a ring and we'll get you focused on how that can happen. It's very self-serve oriented, so there's not a lot of friction in getting started. It is extremely meaningful to take advantage of mentorship in your life. Don't pass it by. I see you nodding, Ryan.
Yeah, massive.
Yeah, the mentorship. And whether or not they become a mentor to you, building your network and understanding how people think in their roles is super important as well. This is the part that's focused on you. Anyone here who's got open positions in their business unit or in their company that are looking for IT leaders or IT doers? Yeah, Andy.
Andy Bradley, American Specialty Health. We got 2 positions that are going to open. They haven't been posted yet, so you kind of get a little bit of an early preview here. So we've got a manager of IT operations infrastructure. So that's our networking, patching and vulnerability management, hypervisor support. We're rapidly adopting cloud, so it's also going to help with cloud migration. The second position is manager of cloud operations. So that's going to be our cloud day 2. So how do we run it, support it, keep it going? How do we transform our operations to be more cloud-centric, take advantage of automation and cloud-focused tools and those kinds of things. So if you're interested, come see me. Both of those roles all post into the LinkedIn group. They'll go live hopefully later this week, might be early next week. We're still, fun HR stuff that we got to get nailed down. So yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Andy. That's American Specialty Health. If you're trying to stalk Andy and his company. Anybody else? Go ahead, Ben.
KSM has a senior infrastructure engineer role open.
Oh, wow.
So,
That's KSM, the accounting firm, not the company that's now known as Resultant. A lot of people still get that confused, so hit Ben up, or is that posted on the website now?
yep, it's on the website. So
Great. Yeah, good team over there on the IT side. I'd encourage you to consider that one as well, or tell your friends about it. Anybody else? Okay, anybody looking for a position who's here in the room right now? Yeah, John.
Yeah, John Griffith. As a matter of fact, coincidentally, I'm looking for an IT operations position. I've in the past worked with MISO as their senior manager of network and telecom, and most recently as the director of IT infrastructure at Wabash Valley.
Oh, great. Yeah, thanks. Good seeing you. John greeted everybody that I knew in the room when he walked in. So he's been doing this for a while. That's a positive thing. Anybody else? Got a couple of recruiter/staff experts here, Kara and Eric. Anything to add?
No, great to be here.
Okay.
Happy to help.
Yeah, they're good contacts if you know people who are looking or in the market or know of open roles. Both have been doing this for a long time and have a great deal of expertise. Upcoming events. Our next event here is September 19th. Chris Bittinger is going to be speaking here. I don't know if you've ever met Chris. I'm really excited about this. My speaker for September asked me to swap for a 2024 date. So I'm in the process of nailing down somebody. I'm moving the chess pieces around to get that slot filled. So very interested in getting that done. And as always, if you know of a good speaker, please let me know, because I don't always have line of sight to folks that I don't know. Love hearing about good opportunities on speaking. Chris does an award every year for good leaders from his group, and I think you'll really enjoy him. He's one of the best sources of reading that I have in all of Indianapolis. So if Chris read it and recommends it, it's a great book. Our Louisville event has really grown and been successful. We started in September of last year, so we're almost a year old down there. August 8th, that's a Tuesday morning as well, down at Yum Brands headquarters, not the arena, but the headquarters on Colonel Sanders Lane. I've got 2 speakers. The Louisville Metro Government CIO, Chris Sight, is going to be speaking on building a great team. And then Mark Hamner from Waystar, which used to be called Zermed, if I remember right. He is involved in a number of education initiatives that help people who are switching careers or are young and are growing into the IT field. And it's not fully focused on coding, although coding is a big piece of it. he's got a real heart for helping people find new roles. So I'm really looking forward to that. I know it's 100 miles away, but it's an easy drive. Sometimes I can get to Louisville from the south side of Indy faster than I can get up here to Carmel. So I'd encourage you, yeah, you feel that pain?
Do.
Yeah. Okay. Finally, the Indiana IT Symposium, the best single day event for IT professionals here in Indianapolis, is going to be September 14th. Starts at 7:30 a.m. They've got a number of great guest speakers that I think you'd really enjoy, and I'm going to be speaking a couple of times too. So I love this event. Expedient's been the title sponsor for the last 8 years, I believe, and it is a great place to see your friends from different roles over the years and to hear good speakers talk about meaningful content. It is free for practitioners. This is straight off their website, IT practitioners only. So it's really focused on you, and it's very much like this group here. Jeff, you've spoken at that event in the past, right?
Yes, I have.
How do you feel about the event?
It is the best single day
Yeah.
Indiana Even when I'm not speaking.
Yeah.
Maybe even more.
Yeah.
I should expect.
I know, that's just me. Anybody else speaking or anybody else planning on going? Don't miss it. It's really worthwhile. Any other events? Women in High Tech? What have you got?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know about Women in High Tech, we seek to attract more girls into STEM careers and support them through their journeys, college, professional, and retain them. In 2020, we lost a lot of women in tech, and you can see that's kind of evident in the room here.
Yeah.
But what helps to build that is connections and personal relationships. So on Thursday, we have an event at the Harrison Center called Connections. There's about 11 spaces left. It starts at 3 o'clock. It's going to be a great event. So I highly encourage you to come.
Where's the Harrison Center?
Downtown somewhere? I'll GPS it.
Google.
Yeah, Google.
Yeah,
But
Google
we
that.
love having our male allies come and helping to, and networking with a lot of other women. You know, I think that's really helpful in building a culture that shows that your organization will support women, and you can build some connections with women who can connect you with other women, because we'd love to see more females in tech.
Amen. And I would encourage you, remember, you can always bring individual contributors along with you to this event. Especially if you see people who have promise on being a leader somewhere in their career, or even interest in maybe advancing their career, even if they're going to be an individual contributor. And as always, you know, bring females, bring people of color, bring anyone who might benefit from a group like this. The best time to network is 2 years ago. The second best time is right now. So stay focused on that, and it can make a big difference in their career long term.
Doug, I have one more thing.
Please.
So it's over a year away, but next October is the Leading Light Awards. If you haven't attended, you definitely should. If you have, tell all your friends how wonderful it is. And the reason I mention it is that awards and scholarship applications will open up in springtime. So be thinking about females in your organization who you might nominate for some awards. We have specific award categories, and we have scholarships, and we allow organizations to sponsor scholarships if that's a way that you can see helping young women come up into tech.
It's
So-
a super cool evening event, and it is so inspiring. The girls that you award just have these incredible resumes at 18 and 22.
Yeah, and some have gone, I keep up with them, and one girl was at cybersecurity at Tesla, and like, they've gone on to do some pretty amazing things, so,
Yeah,
from the awards
super
category and
cool.
scholarships.
Yeah, really nice. Any other events we need to talk about? We love to cross promote. All right. As always, I want to thank Expedient for staying focused on IT leaders all these years. The fact that we're moving into other markets really excites me. I'm going to have the good fortune to be involved in some of those. To be able to bring something to the community without any expectation of anything in return is quite unusual these days. I think it speaks highly to who Expedient is and the type of company they are. We've always been privately held. Even when private equity's been involved, they've been entirely focused on the community and doing good. So we're a cloud provider. We're one of the oldest VMware clouds, and as you probably figured out from walking down the long hall, we do data center space as well, co-location, high-tech landlord, whatever you'd like to call it. We are growing. I think there's a high likelihood that we'll have a Louisville data center in the next few months, and there's more behind that, so kudos to Expedient. Today's speakers, we're going to start with Alex Perry. This is Alex's second time speaking. The first time she spoke was 5 minutes before COVID, back in March of 2020. Remember that, when we had no idea what was coming? And she's going to bring a nice talk on managing conflict. And Michael Quesada from Republic Airways, been wanting him to speak for a while now, and we're finally fortunate enough to have him here. So let's get started. Alex, let me get your presentation set up.
Y'all are brave. You're brave to conflict at 8 o'clock on a, wait, that might be your regular day. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what your days are typically like, but thank you. Thanks for being here, and thanks for the time, and thanks for the smiles and all of that. That's super helpful. I'm Alex Perry, and we're going to talk about conflict today. I want you to take a moment, and I want you to think about the last conflict. Disagreement might be a different word. Conflict sometimes is a really big word, and you're like, conflict, like, are we talking about a war? We're not talking about a war, but what's the last disagreement that you have that didn't go the way that you wanted it to go? I want you to think about that for a second. It didn't go the way you wanted it to go because perhaps you didn't say everything that you needed and or wanted to say. B, you said it and it didn't come out very well. C, you didn't say anything at all, so that conflict sort of sits there unresolved. Or D, some other type of conflict that you had. Take a moment, and I want you to talk at your tables about how that felt. Ready? Mark, get set, go. The favorite line that I heard so far was, "Oh my gosh, do we know each other that well?" And I appreciate that comment, because isn't that often true that sometimes we get launched into conflict before we barely even know people. We just are automatically at a point where we've got to deal with something, and it feels a little awkward, and it feels a little weird, and it feels a little vulnerable. That's true. So kudos to my gentleman who embraced that and kept on talking. Y'all, who's willing to share? What was it like for you, the last conflict, disagreement that you had? I have prizes.
I'll go first. It was frustration. It just didn't go at all the way I thought that the conversation was going to go.
It didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. I had it in my head.
Yep. And it just spirals. You know, it's just you kind of get in this mode of, oh, it's here, and then it gets derailed a little bit, and you're frustrated with the conversation, and then it just keeps going. It just keeps spiraling down that train of, more frustrated because it's just not going the way in my head I thought it was gonna go.
Right. Yep. Anybody relate to that? The conversation I had in my head did not go the way that it was supposed to go out loud. What else? What other things? You got frustrated. Is that the only feeling? Which one?
I think if you're on the receiving end of it can sometimes feel like shock.
Shock.
Yeah, when you're not prepared to address something. And for me, I can say anything in the moment. It's not always the best way to approach it. And so for me, it's asking questions, trying to understand, feeling misunderstood, feeling like I'm not understanding what's happening, and then I have to come back later, and say, okay, I'm more calm now, I've thought of that, but feeling misunderstood.
Misunderstood. I was blindsided. I don't feel like I can necessarily control what's happening. That can be overwhelming. Anybody relate to those feelings in a conflict? Yeah, for sure. Anything else?
One of the examples that I come across is when we speak to people and we are in a
situation, you are speaking, at least I speak from my heart and say, here's the issue that I've got. It's the empathy of even understanding that I have a problem, and you kind of see like this wall kind of build up in front of the other people and say, yeah, not my problem. So you never it's difficult to anticipate how the other person may react, because your natural reaction may be, how can I help you? So you're thinking the other person may react the same way, but how do you go about plan A, plan B, plan C, how they kind of question you on certain things and say, okay, I need to go down this path and realize a positive outcome. It does not work out like that all the time.
No, it doesn't. And the frustration around the other person doesn't receive my message as I intended it, and they heard it through a different set of ears, and they're not feeling my heart, and they're not seeing the empathy or feeling the empathy from me. That's real. That's real. Right here.
Gosh, just last month was surprised. I had 2 situations come up with one-on-ones with my direct report managers where I pride myself in being able to de-escalate situations and have a conversation. They were just really intense and fiery, and I couldn't talk them down. I'm like, wow, this doesn't happen very often. So it was kind of like, that was surprising. So I kind of replayed, and then with both of them the next day, I had a much better conversation because I approached it differently. But in the moment, I was like, wow, I can't talk them off this hill. They're dying on it. So it was surprising.
I can't talk them off the hill.
Yeah.
So you walked away?
Yep, just it's like, all right, I'll take a different approach the next day, and it was a much better conversation with both of them the next day.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes when folks are in their own fire and in their own trigger, I mean, it's like hostage negotiation. Is anyone else obsessed with hostage negotiators? Is it just me? I'm obsessed with them. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm about to talk you off the hill. No, I'm not. Absolutely, I'm not. I am not a hostage negotiator. That's a whole different skill set. But that's true when someone else, how do we handle it when someone else is so triggered that it doesn't matter what I say or what I do, that we're not going to get past this today. We're not going to get past this today. We have a very short amount of time together to talk about this. And so I could hand you a bunch of answers, but I don't want to hand you a bunch of answers because we're not going to have time to apply them. We're not going to have time to do those things. So what I want to do is give you a few things to think about when it comes to conflict. I want to share with you a few of the lessons that I've learned about conflict, and then have you take those and apply them to yourselves today. If I could fix conflict in a half an hour, I'd be the first person to do it, because it doesn't always help us, right? The kind of conflict that ends with, I didn't get where I wanted to go, and now it's all a mess, and it builds on top of each other. That kind of conflict doesn't get us anywhere. So I want to share these lessons with you today. Does that sound good? So if you were hoping for the magic wand that would fix it all, I don't have it. However, I do have these lessons. So first of all, your energy is contagious. And you can swap out energy for emotion here. It's contagious. Your story reminded me of this incident that I had with a client. He walked into my office, and the way it worked at the time, the coaching business that I was a part of, was you just got the coach that you got. And whoever was available was the coach that was going to see you. Well, I don't think anybody told David. So when David walked in and sat down, he looked at me and I said, hi, I'm Alex. And he's like, I'm not supposed to work with Alex. I'm supposed to work with this other person. And I said, what do you mean? And I said, that's not how we work here. We just, everybody comes in, we all do public speaking coaching. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. And he's like, no, you don't understand. I was told I was going to work with Ellen, was her name. And he said, I'm not working with you. And I said, okay. And I said, I don't know how to help you today then, because you're scheduled with me today. The session is, she's not even here today. And he does what your folks do, or perhaps what your folks did, was he starts to escalate. He's like, no, you don't understand. I'm supposed to be here for coaching today. And I am supposed to get coaching today. I'm supposed to get it from Ellen. And now I have you. As my daughter would say, girl. What are you? Excuse me. Sir, David, I'm sorry, like, she's not here today. You have me. I don't take hostages. If you don't want to be here, you don't have to be here, but I'm the only person here today. This goes back and forth for 10 solid minutes while he yells at me, red-faced. You don't understand. I have to do that. Like, I'm supposed to get coaching. I'm supposed to get it from Ellen today. I'm supposed to have this. And he's just screaming at me. Now, fortunately, I come from healthcare. I learned to sit with my back towards the door. Because I'm like, if I gotta run, I will run. I am all about like fight, flight, flee. I'm like, let's run, let's go. And I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. I just kept saying, you don't have to be here. It's okay. Like, if you want to go. But he just didn't want to leave either. So I was like, you can go. You can go. He's like, you don't understand. You don't understand. I was like, sir, I don't understand. I'm telling you, you don't have to be here. I'm telling you it was me. I'm sorry that we made a mistake. I would do anything to help you. And I just tried not to panic myself. And I tried not to yell back at him myself, because I am a good coach. And finally, he looks at me. He says, you don't get it. I said, what don't I get? He's like, I was told to come here today. I was told to come here today. I was told to come here by my CEO. I was told to come here by him, who doesn't like the way I show up in the world. He doesn't like how I talk. He doesn't, and I'm thinking to myself, perhaps I understand. I say nothing. And he's like, I don't want to do this. And I said, I know. That's very clear to me. He said, I don't want to do this, but I have to do this because I'm in line for a different role. And if I don't do this, I don't get to stay in line for the other role. And I said, well, that's okay. I said, listen, I'm still going to tell you the same thing. I don't take hostages. So if you want to go, you can go. We'll try to figure it out. And then he said, no, I don't want to go now. I want to work with you. Yay. Like, oh, I'm so excited. And he's like, no. He's like, you listened to me. You were calm and you listened to me. I did nothing in that scenario other than panic inside my own head and like worry and sweat through my shirt, but I didn't move and I stayed calm and I kept my energy as low as I possibly could, mainly because I thought I was going to run. I'm not trying to make myself a hero here, but it taught me an important lesson, and probably one that you all know, is that when someone is in escalation or someone is in that panic, fight or flight mode, what's our general instinct? Like if somebody, there's a couple different instincts that come. We fight back, power struggle. We flee, like or we run away, or we never have it to begin with because we're afraid of that. Like I'm not even gonna bother with somebody like David. I'm just never gonna have that conversation and pretend it doesn't exist. And then I'm gonna make sure that those problems exist for a really, really, really long time because I'm so afraid that he's gonna react that way because I know him and he's gonna, right? We freeze and we do nothing. Or we have another choice, which is to maintain our emotional control. Our energy is contagious, and I use this example because it's a pretty drastic one, right? But when you are thinking about the energy that you are bringing in to a conflict, what type of energy are you bringing in? Do you want to win? Do you want to come to a third place? I don't know. But it's an important lesson to think of, and it's grounded in research. So for those of you that want to know a little bit more about this, look up Gemma King. She's a behavior psychologist, and she's done research around the chemicals that we release when we are stressed, when we are overwhelmed, when we are underslept. She's done research on teams where she interviewed teams, and she would interview the leader first, then talk with the team, and the leader would report whether or not they'd had a bad night, whether or not they were stressed, whether or not they were overwhelmed. And so she would compare, like day to day, how the team reacted to them. And the team wouldn't necessarily know what was going on with the leader because the leader's like, I gotta be strong. I can't not show people, right? I can't, right? Well, then what would happen is the team almost always reported that they felt something was off on the days when the leader hadn't slept well, when the leader was stressed out and overwhelmed, when the leader was dealing with something that was a struggle for them. Y'all, we release chemicals that you can pick up. If you've ever walked into a room and felt that feeling that I could cut it with a knife, like, ooh, could cut the tension with a knife, that's what I'm talking about here. So before we ever even think about what we're gonna say or how we're gonna solve this problem, we gotta think about what kind of energy am I bringing into this room. Use the tools you have. Y'all, I'm gonna ask a question. How many of you have received some type of conflict communication type of training? Has most everyone received something? Does everyone have a basic knowledge of, like, when I'm in a conflict, I do X, or when I'm in a disagreement, I do X? Right, we have some sort of sense. Here's a quick story. Coming home from the gym, y'all are gonna get to hear about my personal life. You didn't know that was coming. But coming home from the gym with my husband, y'all have spouses or significant others or people that you spend time with, right? These are the people that get us the most. So we're coming home, and I have my plan all laid out. We're gonna get home, I'm gonna pull something out of the freezer, I'm gonna thaw it on the counter, life is gonna be grand, I am in that mode. We pull into the garage, I look at the freezer, I open up the freezer, and what do I find? Meat soup. Like, y'all ever have that where your freezer goes kaput? Like, that's always fun, isn't it? Like, you're like, yay, home ownership and adulthood is a great time. Let's do this. And so I pull it, and there's meat soup. Now, my husband is more of a, like, process this situation, and, you know, we'll deal with this in a very serious and methodical way. I am not. I'm like, let's go. Like, this is an emergency. I gotta handle this. Like, there's meat soup in my freezer. So I was like, look at him. I'm like, triage nurse. I'm like, give me a towel. And he's like, hands me his gym towel, which is this big. And I'm like, that's not big enough. So he goes upstairs and he comes down with one beach towel to clean up this mess, right? One beach towel. And he hands it to me and he asks some sort of question, and I just look at him, and you know this look, right? Like, y'all ever give that look or get that look? Like, that was the moment. I just looked at him. So he had handed me this beach towel. It was not enough, which you could probably feel. And then I gave him this look, and God love him. This is what he says. He was like, Alex, I know you're hungry, but you don't need to act like that. Which then caused me to what? Act exactly like that. I blew like a gasket. I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe you said that to me. Holy crap. Literally spiraled into the cesspool of conflict that says this is how we act. Like, we follow the script. Right? So I was like, I'm gonna be so mad at you. I'm gonna be so mad at you. So like, we go into the kitchen, I'm flinging meat everywhere. And I was like, you don't understand my feelings, and you didn't acknowledge, and this is hard, and you used my hunger against me. How could you love me. Like, you used my hunger against me? I can't believe this. I mean, you wanna talk about the drama that I did? It was like sky high. I should have gotten an award for this. And I'm just like losing it. And we'd had such a beautiful weekend. We'd had this incredible weekend. And I am being a flippin' mess. And I pulled out stuff that happened in 2003. I was like, remember that time that you did this? And he's like, what? He's like, freezer, meat. Like, we're just trying to clean this up. And I was like, and then I land on the counter and I'm crying. I'm literally crying on the counter. Like, it's that dramatic. And the tears are falling, and I was like, I had that moment. Do you ever have that moment where you're like, you know exactly what you just did, woman? Like, I teach this stuff for the love of all things good and pure. I literally had this thought, and I put my head down, I was like, you teach this, and look at you. This is how you're gonna act? I have all of the tools at my disposal. I didn't use them. I literally made a choice. in that moment, that look, that nasty look I gave him, what should I have done? And maybe I couldn't have controlled the look. I don't know. Probably could have. I'm working on controlling this face, but have you seen it? This is a lot for me. But what could I have done differently? Y'all. Could have walked away. What else?
Thank you for the towel.
Thank you for the oh my God. My husband would hug you right now. He'd be like, yes. Just thank you. I'm trying to help you, and I'm not a fast processor. What else could I have done? Anything?
Breathe in, forecast, breathe out, forecast.
Breathe. Relax. Anything?
Grab a little snack.
Grab a little snack. He's like, seriously, would you eat something? What the heck is wrong with you?
I get angry too.
Right? It's real.
Eat a Snickers.
Eat a Snickers. We know these rules. I tell people all the time, we know these rules. We have to use our tools. We have to use them. They're there, and if you need more, I get it. Right? Like, not every conflict is the same. This one just happens to be pretty ubiquitous. If you need more advanced tools, they're out there. They are. But the very basic ones are ones that we know and we forget. And in that moment, just so you know, I'm still married, and I did, I picked my head up off the counter, and I walked up to him because I know what works for him. And he's like, a big hug, and I'm like, I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. Here's where this went wrong. Here's where my face said something very mean to you. And then my mouth proceeded to say very mean things when you were just trying to hand me a towel, and that wasn't fair. Yes, I acted indignant about the, comment about my need for a snack, but he was right. I needed a snack. I needed to not deal with that, which takes me to the last point that I want to leave you with today, which is to remember what's important. In that moment, what was really important? It was my relationship. So I've watched this play out in corporate groups time and time and again, where we prioritize what's urgent over what's important. I'll give you an example. So Sarah, a client of mine, I work with their group. They're part of a team. And Sarah, let me give you a little bit of context. Fast-paced, client-driven, PR firm. They are constantly moving. They are constantly going. And they pride themselves on giving the best service ever to their clients. We will take care of our clients come hell or high water, which I admire. However, that creates a conflict. It creates some tension, doesn't it? Because sometimes what that creates is an expectation that the reps, the service providers are sacrificing themselves time and time and again in order to serve those clients. Sarah went to her mid-level manager on I don't know how many occasions and said, listen, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I need some help. And I want you, can you help me? Can we pass out some of these duties? And to our credit, Sarah and I worked on delegation skills. We worked on lots of different things. And they would continue to say, yes, we'll get there, Sarah, we'll get there. But if you could just take this one more thing. Could you just take this one more task? Because this thing is really important. This thing is the project could fail. X, Y, and Z could happen. Every time there was a different reason for adding one more thing. Well, those one more things went on for 2 years. Sarah had been there 10. Sarah has a baby. One more thing. She's like, you guys, I can't keep holding this. I've asked for help. And it's like, this one's urgent. We need you to take it. This one's urgent. We need you to take it, Sarah. This one's urgent. We need you to take it, Sarah. What do you think Sarah actually ended up doing at the end?
Quitting.
Sarah quit. Sarah quit, and she found a place that said point blank to her. We were and she laid out. She literally laid out. I want to work 3 days a week. I want to do this. I can take on this amount of clients. Here's where I can fill in. She laid it out for the team that she had worked for. And they said, well, yeah, we could do that, but can you just keep going for a couple more months? And she said, no, I don't have a couple more months anymore. because I have a son now. And I'll have a couple more months. So sometimes, in all aspects of our lives, we are prioritizing the urgent. Urgent means it needs to be addressed immediately or something catastrophic will happen. Important means that it's critical to our success. How successful will this PR team now be? How did they limit their success? Because they let a 10-year employee go because they continue to prioritize urgent. Now I know that's a little Franklin Covey-esque, but it's important to ask yourself. And it's really important to ask yourself whether or not the thing that you think is urgent is really urgent, because we could go back to meat soup. That could have sat there forever, right? That could have sat there for a good another couple of hours. They weren't completely frozen. Where did the damage occur? Where did the real damage occur in that scenario?
Between the people.
Between the people. 100%. So as you're thinking about approaching a conflict or something that's challenging in your, like that feels like tension, it feels like friction, it feels like it's going to be hard, it feels like I can't overcome it, it feels like I got it wrong, remember what's important. Remember that there are opportunities for second chances and second tries. I talk about this for a couple of different reasons. Number one, I'm incredibly passionate about communication. So I bring you these lessons not to give you answers, but to give you thoughts, to challenge you to go and think about how you are approaching conflict in the world today. Because I don't know how you all are seeing it, but I'm seeing it like we can't even manage a decent conversation. I might spend too much time on social media, but I'm like, for the love. Like we can't even look at each other as human beings and say, you know what? Like this is weird and awkward, but we need to talk about it. Can we talk about the weird and awkward thing that's happening so we can maybe get it better? Because this is really an interpersonal problem, it's a prioritization problem, and if we want better results and we want better accountability and we want better goals, then let's talk with each other. And let me tell you, I care a whole lot about talking. Do y'all know why I care a whole lot about talking? Some of you have probably heard this before if you've heard me speak. If you haven't, I'm gonna tell you just a little bit about me. So my background, I'm a speech language pathologist. That means for nearly 20 years, I worked with people who were talking one day and not talking the next. So I ended my career on the brain injury unit at Community Rehab Hospital. The people that I worked with were gunshot wound victims, they were stroke victims, they had ALS, they had Parkinson's, you name it. I care a whole lot about our communication because my people talked one day and not talked the next, and I saw the pain that came from them not resolving the stuff that they needed to resolve before the thing happened. And the thing's gonna happen. So let's think about how do we want to handle this. Let's remember what's important. Let's use the tools that we have. And let's control our energy and our emotions so it's focused in a positive direction, because that's so important. So before I finish up, 2 questions. If you remember nothing else that I say today, remember these 2 questions, okay? Based on my patients and my deep love for them, is what would you say today if you knew tomorrow you would never speak again? And who would you listen to if you knew that tomorrow they would never speak again? Thank you so much for your time. Newsletter comes out every Friday, full of thoughts and tips and great information. Here's a link to my calendar. If you ever just want to talk, like I'm not going to sell you anything. It's free of charge. I love connecting with people. If you ever want to talk about communication, how to get better at communication, you've got questions, just let me know. I'd love to meet with you and talk with you. Doug, thank you. You're always so good to have me, and I appreciate you.
Thank you, Alex.
You said the speakers had to be good.
Yeah, I
to be
did.
part of this. And then you bring me on right after Alex. Wow. Thanks. And then you're starting off backwards. So this is awesome.
I really did.
We are to a great start.
There we go.
Thank you. So for those of you who have not met me, my name is Michael Quesada. I'm a native Texan, so I was born in El Paso, Texas, moved to Indianapolis in 2001, and have worked, aside from the US, have worked in Mexico, have worked in Europe, and have led IT teams across the different technical domains, including application development, infrastructure and operations, and security teams. Today, currently I am the Director of Strategic Initiatives at Republic. For those of you who don't know or are not familiar with Republic, that's a regional airline that is headquartered here in Indianapolis. A lot of people don't know that. Today, we partner, so if you've flown from Indianapolis to anywhere in the East Coast, maybe the Midwest cities, maybe down to Florida, in an American airline, United, Delta, chances are that it's one of our planes. Chances are really good that you got there on time in a very good and a clean airline. We're very proud. We're a high-performing airline in the Midwest, so we're very proud of that. Today I was here to talk, I've been having a conversation with Doug about what maybe would be a relevant topic to talk with this particular group. And part of it, part of this is part of, focused on emerging leaders, but I think a lot of it will resonate with folks who have been in leadership positions for quite a bit of time. I think we underestimate a lot of times the layer between the vision, so the person that's creating the vision, that is not our vision, it's their vision, and then the team that's executing on that vision, so it's the team that we're responsible for, and then we're caught in the middle. So there's a lot of complexity there that I think sometimes we undervalue. So I'm going to talk about my experiences in terms of leading in that gray space. But before I go there, so now I've introduced myself, introduced the topic, with hopes that people will kind of have to listen to what I'm going to say here over the next couple of minutes. But then I'm going to share a story that's going to probably be, maybe hit the credibility. Maybe you guys will stop listening to what I'm going to say, because it contradicts a lot of things that Alex just talked about. So a while back, I had a disagreement with my direct manager. He was at a VP level, and I told him that he could stick his feedback where the sun doesn't shine, right? I told him that. It wasn't a one-on-one situation, nope. It was in a group situation that was this big, so it was full of our IT leadership team. It was, his peers were there, and the CIO was there. That was a smart move, wasn't it? So with that in mind, I will share more about how this story concludes later on in the presentation. So what's so complicated, right? What's so complicated about this middle area here? When you look at some of these things, it's vision, strategy, execution. In that emerging leadership position, you're likely dealing with some strategy. Maybe you're going into some execution. And we all know, there's some proven models out there that talk about strategy and how we develop strategy. There's a lot of frameworks we can adopt. There's different methodologies that we can use for execution. We're all aware of Agile. We're aware of moving from project to product. So there's a lot of things that are out there that we know about, that we can educate ourselves and get very smart about. But what makes this so complicated? What makes this so complicated?
People.
It's the same thing that makes it very rewarding. It's the people, right? And so this is not typically a linear relationship, right? This is a circular relationship. And what you're doing when we're doing this is that you're managing two different relationships. It's already very difficult to manage one relationship. Here you're managing two different relationships, completely two different stakeholders, and you're trying to figure out how to make each other, for them to talk to each other, right? And so this can get pretty complicated, right? So when you talk about the vision, again, it's circular, right? It's not linear. If we're principally led leaders, it's somebody can give you the vision, but you should be able to say, I don't understand it. Or maybe I have a challenge on the leadership, right? Not easy to do, but something that you have to do in order to be a principal leader. And the reason why I say that is because you need to be able to understand that vision, make it yourself, and be passionate about it to then translate it down the road, right? Now you have that circular vision, right? So now you have the vision. Now we start to develop the strategy. We start to put the methodologies in place. We do all that stuff, right? No, right? We got to go talk to the team and get their feedback, right? We got to get their feedback. Hey, how do you guys feel about the vision, right? So now we're managing a relationship, right? It's not the methodologies, it's not any of those components, it's not the development of the strategy that makes it difficult. Is now I'm talking to the team, now I understand the vision, I'm passionate about the vision, now I'm going to the team and getting their buy-in, right? And it's not always, sometimes, yep, pretty straightforward, I get the buy-in, then we move on and we can start to develop the strategy and put some of those methodologies in place. At some points, we get the feedback, right? We're principled leaders. We listen as well as we direct. So we start to get the areas where the team doesn't understand the vision. We gotta come back to the executive and talk about, hey, there's some questions around this. How can we clarify this? Or maybe you have the answer. Either way, this starts to become a very difficult relationship that you're managing on the two ends of the spectrum. So to some extent, I like to say that you're kind of almost like a person API, right? You have to be able to deal with the complexities, the reality of down the line. You really need to understand the complexities, and you need to speak in the complexity of the language that people are speaking in that language. And then on this side, you need to be able to polish it up. The interface needs to look a little bit clean and needs to be engaging, right? So, and you're doing all that while you're there in the middle. Again, this is not a very easy thing to do. So as I go forward, I'm going to share with you some things that some insights of things that I've done in order to manage and feed the relationships on both sides of this spectrum. The first one is consistency, right? And this is about the team performing and bringing the vision into place. Consistency, so this is my experience, right? My experience is there has to be a long-term engagement of that leader to be able to see the transformation come to place, right? So what does that mean? Me as a leader, I'm committing myself before I ask the team to commit themselves, right? I have gone to the point where I'm saying, I understand the vision, I am gonna commit myself to this. And what does that mean? It usually means that if it's a large transformation, if it's strategic, it doesn't mean that it's 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. It starts at 18 months, maybe 24 months, maybe 36 months, right? And I'm committing myself to that team. Before I ask them to commit themselves, am I committed to that? I want to provide that consistency for that team over that long period of time. So this is pretty serious, right? So what do I typically do, right? I have to make sure that my personal values and principles are aligned with the organization, are aligned with these people. I'm committing 2 years of my life, 3 years of my life for that team. I need to make sure that I'm aligned, right? So the example with Republic, right? So now I've been there a year and a half. And so when I was having the conversation with Nirav Shah, who was the CIO there, about joining his organization, we talked about the transformation activities that he had for his organization. So we had a good conversation, and those look like long initiatives that are gonna take some time to get done, right? Now I'm getting the sense, okay, this is where I'm looking for. In my experience, there needs to be consistency for that transformation to happen. That is me. I am gonna be the one that's providing that consistency. So I have enough conversation with Nirav to make sure that we're understanding each other in terms of, that we are able to work with each other. So all that happens in the part of the interview process. So I start to feel more comfortable about that. The other thing that I did is I looked a little bit more into the organization to understand more about Republic, right? And how are they as an organization? And one thing that caught my attention, and I'm gonna read it because I don't wanna massacre it, because it's so well written, and it caught my attention. And this is pretty bold, right? So this is Republic's culture statement. It says, we believe that every associate, regardless of personal belief or worldview, has been created in the image and likeness of God. We seek to become stronger from our diversity. We seek personal respect and fulfillment from our work. Most of all, we seek to recognize the dignity and potential of each member of our Republic Airways Holdings family. Right? Let that sink in, right? That's bold, right? When's the last time that I've seen a statement like that mentions God in any corporate organization that is not leaning towards religion, right? For me, in terms of where I am personally in my life, and that spirituality is a big component of who I am, that spoke to me, right? So from a consistency perspective, where do I sit on that? I'm all in, right? I'm bought in. So again, I'm committing to the team before I'm asking the team to commit to me, right? So that's one item. The next one is direction. Again, these are the things the team needs to be able to be successful that they need from us, right, as leaders. So from a direction perspective, this is now translating the vision into actionable goals and objectives for the team, right? But there's another loop on the other side, right? So I'm not directing, I'm not understanding and directing here. I'm working with the team for their buy-in, and we're co-developing these goals and objectives in terms of the direction that they need. Am I there for them? If there's confusion and they need some kind of guidance, absolutely I'm there for them. But we're co-developing those together as a team. And the biggest thing that I found through my experience has been how bought in I am at the organization for when I provide that direction. And if I'm very bought in, then it's at a passion level, it's an emotional level. And now the team can see that emotion, right? The direction is coming through not because I am directing or managing, it's because I'm emotionally connected to the vision, and it comes across to the team, right? So from a direction perspective, that's what I mean when I talk about direction. The third and last item that I'll speak about in terms of what the team needs to be successful to execute on large transformation projects is space, right? So what is this? This is the room the team needs to be able to develop as a team, right? To go through the process that everybody, that I think Aaron had talked about before, right? It's kind of the form, norm, storm, and perform, right? So people need time to get together and develop as a team. We need time to develop the skill sets that we need. We need time for the team, we need to allow time for the team to experiment and do some of those components that they must do, right? So we need to allow that space for that team. In my opinion, this is the area where then companies create new capabilities, right? If you create that space, the company will have a new capability, whether before you weren't an internal development shop, now you become an internal development shop and you learn about Agile, you learn about DevOps, you start to create that new capability within the organization. So this is a really important component that I believe, again, creates this long-term capability within the team that then gives back to the organization. Now, in my experience as well, this is one of the biggest areas that you find yourself then coming back and negotiating with this group over here, right? Why? Because this group wants results, right? They want the progress. They want to see the progress. They want to get the business benefits. And when you're allowing space and time for your team, well, that's a trickle, right? It's not coming through. So this is a big area, again, lining up principally. You need to be able to show some level of results. So while the team is learning, what is it that we can show in terms of being able to have some solid output as they go through this process? And a lot of times it is a trickle, right? But if you have a quick feedback loop, if you have this communication with this team and you're transparent about what the team is promoting, it makes it an easier discussion. It's not an easy discussion. It's a very difficult discussion to allow for that space. But I personally believe, and I'm strongly principled about allowing that space for that team to execute on their transformation. So these are the three main components that I monitor as I'm having the relationship with the organization downstream. I'm now going to come over to this side and then talk about kind of some of the areas that I monitor, again, with my relationship with the upstream or my manager. Credibility, right? Credibility is huge, right? So I do what I'm saying that I'm going to do, right? That's one. I do the right thing. I am right a lot, right? Let's not disguise this. I am right a lot. To get credibility, there's no denying that. You have to be right a lot of times to build up that credibility. because you're the trusted advisor to that executive, right? For your domain. That means you're really smart, you're really good at what you do, and there should be no sugarcoating that, is you have to be right a lot. Now, we'll talk about risk, right? This is not the place, this is not where you use credibility when you use risk, right? You use this up. So I'm not talking, we'll talk about taking risk, but credibility is one and protecting that. I mean, I still remember one of the feedback that I got from a CEO when I was working at ITT, and he said that I was a low maintenance executive, right? But you know the thing that stuck with me is he said that I was a trusted advisor. That's huge. That's huge for somebody to say that you're a trusted advisor. He believed in what I was saying, right? And so that's huge, and you need to protect that, right? So that's one thing that I watch for and build as I build the relationships with the executives. The other one is action, right? They say action speaks louder than words, right? And this could not be truer when you're dealing with the executive state, right? Action speaks louder than words. They want to see action. If you're having a lot of conversation and you're going through a lot of methodologies and you're doing a lot of these things and you're strategic planning, you're doing all these things and there's no action, no business benefits, then this is a weak relationship, right? It's not huggy and it's not about those things. It's about action and performance. Those are the things that matter there. The last one that I'll bring up, and hopefully you'll be proud of me on this one, is actions are louder than words, but words are necessary, right? Words are necessary. That dialogue, this is necessary. You need to have that dialogue. You need to have that conversation. This is a space that I say, no news is necessarily not good news, right? No news means that you do not know where you stand with with your stakeholder public. No news is not necessarily good news. So there has to be this steady flow of communication, right? There has to be this steady flow of communication. And the other thing that I would say, an uncomfortable conversation is better than no conversation, right? Here, it's not sidestepping the difficult conversation, it's having the difficult conversation. So these are the important things that I look at as I'm managing this relationship up here. Now, the credibility and dialogue, definitely use those as I deal with the team on this side, right? It's just as important for me to have credibility up the chain as it is to have credibility down the chain. This team needs to believe that I know what I'm talking about when I'm giving them some guidance here as well. And they need to know that I'm listening, right? That communication is important to me. They need to know about those things. So when I go through this process, these are the areas that I'm focused on. Does that resonate with the team?
Yes.
Yep. The next one, poke the bear. Conflict, right? So poke the bear, poke the bear is basically you're agitating somebody who has more power than you, right? And sometimes you're gonna do this. Sometimes you have to do this, right? And so this is where I'll go back and I'll talk about, and let me do this, turning that into a bear. This is where I'll continue my story about when I told my boss to stick his feedback. So the context is, I was a director, and we were going to have a global networking session that was going to last 2-3 days. And so what had happened is we had split up our IT organization into different domains. Those teams were going to build the strategies, the 2-year strategies for each one of those domains, right? And so we're going to get together as a global team and then work our different organizations, and then we're going to stand in front of the IT leadership to tell them, to basically discuss our proposal for a 2-year strategy for that domain. I was responsible for coming up with the server virtualization strategy that we're going to have for 2 years, right? And so what I did is I cheated a little bit. So I found out who my team was going to be months before it was time to do it, right? Maybe a month, maybe 2 months. And so I gave them all homework. I said, guys, go find out, go get the inventory across our global organization, right, 3,000 servers. Find out all the details around, you know, all the hardware configuration, what applications are sitting on there, what's the lease schedule for each one of those servers. I've got a ton of information. And let's start accumulating that data, right? What is that data telling us? So we had a super hit, you know, jump start to what we were doing. The team put in a lot of work to get to the point where when we got together for that workshop, we were not trying to develop a strategy. We were beyond the strategy. We had all the data. We were now putting together roadmaps and schedules based on data that showed how we were going to then replace servers over time, you know, according to lease schedules, according to all this data, right? It was awesome, impressive. I was ready to get in front of the organization and just kind of be proud of all the work the team had done. So we go through the process. We're presenting them. So the thing is, we're presenting in front of a big group of the IT organization. The front table is the, you know, executive organization. So this is where the VPs and the CIO are sitting. They're the ones that are going to judge, you know, how we're doing on our strategy. So we go through our presentation. We talk about all the assumptions. And I'm sitting there, and we're so, okay. So is there any feedback? So a lot of the initial feedback was very positive. Oh my gosh, you guys have done a lot of homework. All this is data driven. This is awesome, right? Except for my boss. My boss stood up, and he was, you know, I'll call him Greg. Rhymes with Greg, but it's not Greg. And so he stood up and he said, well, I think you guys can do 10 to 15% more savings in year one. And I said, well, Greg, like what assumption, or we've shown a lot of data here. Like, where is it? Where are you getting that? Where are you getting that from? And Greg was gruff, and he was an ex-military guy. Not all ex-military guys are this way. But he said, well, Michael, he goes, I pulled it out of my butt. And so I sat there and I thought, okay, and how do I respond to this, right? So I said, well, Greg, I said, no wonder that number stinks, and I think you should put it right back where you got it from. So why did I do that? Why did I decide to poke the bear in front of all his peers and his colleagues? Why did I decide to do that? The reason, it was a principled risk, right? The team had worked their butts off. We had talked about data and how we're data driven and how we're fact driven and how all this work we need to do. And in a small statement, somebody was going to sweep that away, right? Imagine the motivation of that team when they're saying, just arbitrarily, somebody's going to say something different, right? And I knew Greg well enough to know that he was a big proponent of stretching, giving you a stretch goal, right? And I was not going to have that, not that day, right? It was all about data driven. It was all about the motivation of the team. It was all about all that work, and I wanted the team to know that I had their back, right? So the good news is that, you know, I didn't get fired. People laughed because they laughed at him. They laughed at where he got it from, and they laughed at where I told him to put it back. But it was a principal risk, right? So for me, I'm saying, as leaders, you will find that you have to poke the bear sometimes, right? For different reasons. One is this principal risk that I speak about. The other one is vision, right? So this guy's not the only guy that has vision, right? We have vision, right? We have vision also. And so this is the time that a lot of times you get this, you know, where you agitate your leader because you want to do something that's a little bit different, right? So this is where I feel like innovation versus status quo comes from. So we try to do the right thing. We have the conversation with our boss. We're patient. We're saying, hey, explaining it with facts and blah, and he's not buying in, right? So we have to poke the bear, right? What might this look like? It's not as dramatic as maybe what I did this last time, right? But it could be, you know, what I've done before was, hey, here's a credit card, go stand up some Amazon instances, and let's figure out what this technology can do for us, right? Bypass this whole approval process, and they don't need to know about it, right? Here's the credit card. I've done that before, right? So that's poking the bear, trying to figure out, I have a different idea. I'm building my own vision, and so but it's a risk, right? It's a risk. The other place where you might poke the bear is where you have this large enterprise, initiative that's going forward, and all of a sudden you're the one that has to say, I think we need to reverse course. I think we need to pause it. I think we need to stop it. I think we need to pivot here, right? So my experience here, right? We have this large enterprise flagship, piece of software that, drives 60 to 70% of revenue for the organization, and we're 2 years into the development, and it's your typical agile story, right? I'm the new leader that comes in, evaluates what we're doing. I'm saying like, stop. I think we need to pause, and I think we need to really consider instituting agile development in here. That caused a lot, right? Well, you're gonna stop it now, and so what? And yeah, and I'm gonna need 3-6 months to get the team ramped up, and what? And I'm gonna need business resources, because you know what? We're not getting real-time requirements from people who know what the application should do. It's IT people trying to figure this out, right? Big deal, right? And so my main message to you is that you will have to poke the bear sometime, right? And but it's a risk. And so then what I say is you need to feed the bear first, right? Before you poke the bear, feed the bear. And so all this is about basically building the relationship, right? Do what they need to do, right? Have an authentic connection with your leader, right? So that they know who you are, that they already feel that you're dynamic and that you have ideas that are your own, and so that you have that connection with them. So they start to get a sense of who you are and what you want to do. Create this quick action feedback. Again, action speaks louder than words at this level, right? So that you're creating things that they want. And then I always think about compromise with options, right? So it's not no or I'm not bought into that. Is what are some? But here's another option, right? Maybe this or but here's another option. So you talk about the different options. So for me, it's important that you feed the bear before you poke the bear, right? And so I'm almost done here with my presentation. And so again, feed the bear. You're gonna poke the bear. And is this a wise decision, right? Is it a wise decision? So you're gonna have two outcomes, right? You're gonna either have this very angry bear in the bottom, and you will lose some things, and you need to be aware of that. When I poke the bear, I'm willing to lose what? What am I gonna lose? You need to be aware of that, because this is a real outcome, right? I gave you the ones where I won, there's other ones where I didn't, right? So, but that's a real result of that. And then the last one is the dancing bear, right? Sometimes you end up with, hey, you know what? So how is it that you were able to get this savings or whatever that you were doing, right? Because I gave the credit card to the guys, they figured out this Amazon thing, and then we're virtualized that, we're getting rid of all this hardware, and here's what we're gonna do, right? So you win, but you don't always win. And so my message to you couldn't be stronger, right? Proceed with caution. But this, I really do believe that to be a good leader, you need to learn how to poke the bear. I really do. So in conclusion, this gray space that's in the middle, it's complex, right? It's a lot of relationship building, but it's fun, right? It's fun and it's energetic, it's creative. That's where innovation comes from. So I encourage you to stay in there, right? Because I think, much like many of you, I have had my ups and downs there. I'm lost sometimes inside that gray box, right? Trying to figure it out. It's relationships. So you could get lost in there. So it's not, it's not that somebody who's been doing this for, 30 years can still get lost in that box. I could still lose. I could still poke the bear the wrong way when it's time, right? It's not easy, but it's creative and it's exhilarating. It's a good place to be. And so I'll leave you with one of my favorite quotes. I don't know if you've read this book. If not, I would strongly recommend it. Short read, easy read, but it has a lot of really cool, principally led, items. It's not something you're gonna say, okay, then I'm gonna do this, then I'm gonna do this. It makes you think a lot about culture and your own principles. But to be a leader is to enjoy the special privileges of complexity, of ambiguity, of diversity. But to be a leader means especially having the opportunity to make a meaningful difference in the lives of those who permit leaders to lead. I think this is awesome. I mean, I have this everywhere that I can because it reminds me that this smart guy is saying it's ambiguous. Oh, okay, yeah, well, okay, that makes me feel better. I thought I should know everything, right? It's complex. Okay, yeah, it's complex, right? So somebody's reaffirming that you're in a space that you don't have to know all the answers to, right? And then this last part kills me, right? In terms of, it just reminds me, right? I'm a leader because people have allowed me to be a leader, not because I've been put in a position to do that. It's something that I've been allowed to do. So with that, I leave you and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate both of the presentations today. I like the contrast on how to deal with conflict. Face first is the right answer some days. Yeah, it's really important. We have got a great meeting coming up in September. As I mentioned, Chris Bittinger, and who I'm hoping we can get to speak, will be fabulous. If you can get to Louisville, please do. Both are great speakers, and I think their story is very interesting. And then the Indiana IT Symposium, don't forget. Jeff, you are working on something. Do you want to talk briefly about what you're working on as a maybe a deeper dive into being a great leader here locally?
Sure, yeah, thanks. So those of you that were here last time, I introduced the subject of the Emerging Technology Leaders Inner Circle. It's meant to be a high-powered peer group of emerging leaders who are serious about their career, perhaps show up on their CIO's succession plan, and I want to help lift up those leaders. And so this will be a full day per month for a year, and in the morning we'll address leadership in probably a unique and practical way you haven't necessarily seen before. I know I haven't until I came across this. This is going to allow you to take something very practical away every month and go apply it and measure the outcomes, and we'll make sure your boss sees that measured progress. And then in the afternoon we'll have the members bring a real life problem, hopefully a leadership challenge from their area, and we'll work together to help you solve it, or at least get a plan to solve it. So it's now got a schedule. It starts Wednesday, September 13th. I'm still working on locations, but would love to have you. I think it's going to be a real interesting experience.
Being deliberate about your career is critical. And a focus group like this, I've seen it work time and time again to really make a huge difference. It's an investment in yourself. So if that sounds appealing, I would encourage you to talk to Jeff as soon as you can. Any final comments? Thank you for coming. Hope you have a great day.